Hi kids, we did it. We made it to Dracula, 1931. So how did we get here? In the Nosferatu video, I mentioned that they got into trouble because they didn't have the rights to the movie. They didn't have the rights because they didn't ask for the rights. So, the novel comes out in 1897. Between 1897 and 1922, when Nosferatu comes out, can't remember the exact date, Bram dies. Bram dies. Before he dies, Bram and his wife Florence are living above their means. So he passes away, and now she's struggling to pay the bills. So she auctions off some of his stuff, she sells some of his stuff, and then one day she gets a pamphlet in the mail from the premiere of Nosferatu. And she hears about it's this big extravagant event, and they've got a symphony performing and everything, and she's upset. She's upset for a lot of reasons. One, people would refer to her as the wife of Dracula. She didn't really like that. Two is they didn't ask for permission, and she's got no money. So she goes about and she tries to sue, right? It's like a 3-year process suing. The Prana film, I think, which was that produced Nosferatu, they go bankrupt, which causes more problems. So they don't actually have all that money that she wants. Eventually, she gets the rights to Nosferatu because you can't just take somebody's work like that, right? So now she owns the rights to Nosferatu, and she decides, burn it all to the ground. So all the copies of Nosferatu are destroyed. They're supposed to be, obviously, because we can watch Nosferatu, so they weren't all destroyed. Anyways, so then it was Bram's vision to have Dracula as a stage production. So somebody comes to Florence and says, I'll make it a stage production. And she says, okay, yes, I will let you do that under one condition. You have to leave the dialogue, the language, the same. Don't touch that. And he says, okay. And then that's what he does. And Dracula, the character within the play that he makes, kind of becomes a joke. She's not happy about that. But it's very popular. It's touring all over the UK. And then somebody else in America sees that, and he calls it illiterate. So he thinks he can do better. So he makes his own stage production of Dracula. And the star of that stage production is Bela Lugosi. So, now Universal Pictures decides that they want to make Dracula a film. So what do? They do what you're supposed to do, is they buy the rights to Dracula. They buy the rights to the novel, they buy the rights to both stage productions, so now they own Dracula. Okay, so here we are, Dracula. So Todd Browning directed it. Get to that. It's supposed to star Lon Chaney, but Lon Chaney gets cancer. During the production of the movie, he passes away, which might be the reason that Todd Browning apparently wasn't too engaged with the production. His friend just died. It's also said that he only directed about 8 talkies. This is the first talking horror picture. Hey, Dracula speaks. He never drinks, though. Wine. Carl Freund was the cinematographer on the movie. He was F.W. Monroe, who directed Nosferatu. He was his cinematographer, and he is credited with coming up with the unchained camera technique, which basically means that he took the camera off of the tripod, right? So now the camera can be moved around. You can use it for crane shots or pans or tracking shots or tilts, or so he is the father of moving the camera. So everyone in the production basically says that he directed the movie. So starring Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi makes Dracula sexy. So the UK stage production, they make Dracula a joke. And then in the American stage production, they make him like a high society playboy. And then it gets into Bella's hands and he makes him a sexy vampire. So, which is kind of what he is in the novel, so it goes a little full circle there. Carl Freund, by the way, won an Academy Award for Best Cinematography, not for Dracula, but a little trivia, and Desi Arnaz selected him to be the cinematographer on I Love Lucy. And he is credited with not coming up with, but perfecting and improving the 3-camera technique that sitcoms used. What else do we have? So, it was the most successful film that Universal had released that year. It came out on Valentine's Day, 1931. That's a good Valentine's Day movie, right? Also, we should mention that there is a Spanish version. So in the film system in Hollywood at the time, they were trying to maximize everything, right? Get more bang for your buck. So the English language versions of movies would be shot on set during the day. Cast and crew would leave, and then a new cast and crew would come in, and they would shoot different language versions. So in this case, they shot a Spanish language version of Dracula using all the same sets and the costumes, but different director and actors. So for different markets, they could release the movie and not have it dubbed or anything, right? The characters are actually speaking the language. That practice didn't last very long because you'd have actors speaking different regional dialects with different accents, and foreign audiences found it really confusing. And then that's kind of how we got B movies, because they still wanted to take advantage of the time that they had. Yeah, so Dracula, 1931, the popularity kicks off Universal Horror, so we'll go there next. Talk about that. Frankenstein comes out next. Dracula is also, it doesn't have a score. There are pieces of music in the film, and even in film in general, no film has a score written entirely just for the production. There might be pieces and themes, but they use a lot of classical works, right? So in Dracula, there's maybe 2 or 3 pieces of music, but the decision was just to use, those spooky sound effects that you play on Halloween for the trick-or-treaters. So that's where that comes in for horror. So hit subscribe. See you in Frankenstein.